the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review the show. A reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. I'm your host, Wayne Malou. Joining me in studio today in place of Alex Wong is a friend of the program, Big V, Big Jacob, Vivek Jacob of Raptors.com. What's going on, man?
Nothing much, man. Just looking forward to this stretch run. Should be some good basketball, some intense games, some games with stakes, real stakes.
Oh, there were stakes for yesterday's game for sure.
And yeah, you were definitely into it.
I mean, let's be clear. I'm into the game like that every game.
Yeah, but no, you're in like playoff form now.
Oh,
like,
okay. I didn't know there was another level.
No, there's always a next level with you.
Okay. Oh man. Well, that's good to know. Shouts to Raptors PR once again. Thanks for the booth. It's like a prison cell up there. It's good. It's good. I need that solitary confinement based on sort of the approach I take towards this coverage. But no, I mean seriously though, big win last night, and that's where we're gonna start. With the win last night. I mean, look, we got to start in the fourth quarter. That was awesome. The Raptors won the fourth quarter, 34-26. I really consider that 34-24, by the way, because Patrick Beverley got himself a little extra bucket at the end there. That meant nothing. So congrats to Patrick Beverley, who, by the way, walked into the arena. I saw the tunnel walk in, right? So the first bus came in for the Bulls, and whatever. All those guys were sort of like walking together, and Patrick Beverley was leading the line, holding a basketball and like pounding it, and he's just like, I'm ready to go. And I was like, man, I've seen NBA players pull up in a lot of things. Like we've seen the tunnel walks these days. Yeah. Someone walking in with the basketball, that just screams like I'm ready to play. And then he had 6 points before the bucket at the end, so 8 points.
Tone setter.
He set that tone, man. He was leading that line too, holding the basketball. I was like, oh wow, it's like a school trip over here,
man. But you upped your pregame routine. It's beyond the warm-ups now. Now you're examining, everyone coming in off the bus.
That just so happened to be the time that I was at the arena. To be honest, that was a fortunate one. Also, it was interesting because we had gotten the alerts on our phone that like, oh, the Raptors signed Will Barton, and they had cut Wong Show.
Right,
and we'll get to that in the second half of the program. But then I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. I'm thinking about sort of the ramifications. And then I'm walking through where the media room, like we have to walk past the Raptors locker room. And there's a brief moment where we're sort of in the same tunnel with the players. And then I'm looking over my shoulder, and I was like, oh, that's Will Barton right there, walking out with Malachi, about to go warm up and in full Raptors gear. And I was like, this is like the Raptors, like, this is like Amazon. This is beyond Amazon Prime. This is like the old days where you will like drive to the store and just pick it up and bring it home.
Yeah, ready to go.
That's like it's like when you go to a store and you wear it off the rack and you get it. Like it was so quick the way they got him into the roster. So yeah, but good game last night though. Good game. You could tell the importance of it. Raptors got the new starting five, but let's start with the fourth quarter. Scotty Barnes, that defense in the fourth quarter really got everyone involved. Really got everyone going. What did you see from that?
I think I just saw him ramp up his intensity, his energy to another level, right? And I think when you look at last season, the way he closed out the second half of the season, the way we got a little taste of what he is capable of in the playoffs and that type of atmosphere, I think that's what we're going to see from Scotty Barnes the rest of the way, right? Like when we talk about these high-stakes games and him really looking forward to that opportunity, I think he will recognize the moment, and this is the stuff that he seems to live for. All his play has indicated that, right? Like we call him, I mean, I don't know how much we're going to be calling him fourth quarter beat, but
I mean, we got fourth quarter Scotty's like a real thing. Like it's like statistically a real thing. It's his best quarter.
And so I think the way he led the charge defensively, and Thad Young was talking about this at practice today, where he does not worry at all about Scotty's offense if he brings that intensity defensively. Gotcha. Because when Scotty is locked in on that level defensively, the offense is just going to come no problem. Because then you're getting out in transition, you're getting all these easy looks. And so whether it's him taking it all the way, whether it's him blocking the shot, then leading the break, dishing it off to Pascal for an easy lay, and all those things are going to come. So, Nick Nurse called it inspirational. I think that's exactly what it was. Everyone kind of rallies around that and those types of plays. And frankly, the crowd rallied around it too, because it was a bit of a quiet night. And then all of a sudden, Scotty really gets into it. and the crowd gets going. And I think all of that lifted the team, lifted the atmosphere, and then the Raptors came away with the dub.
Yeah, I mean, I think fourth quarter, that defense. I mean, look, first off, the Raptors fan base, and I think that the identity of sort of like what Toronto sports looks for, like everyone really rallies around the guys that play super hard, right? I mean, like there's no comparison really been made between Bismack Biyombo and Scotty Barnes, but you remember how much of a fan favorite a guy like Bismack was, right?
Yeah.
And to see Scotty tap into that next gear defensive in the fourth quarter was really fun because it wasn't even just like, okay, yes, he's blocking 4 shots, which is really good for the fourth quarter, and he had to because of the fact that he was playing center a lot of those lineups because of Jakob Poeltl didn't even get back into the game in the fourth quarter. That's how good he was doing on the defensive end. But you have Scotty, who's also able to switch out on Nikola Vucevic. He had a couple possessions where he ran him off the 3-point line and contained him, forced him to tough shots in the mid-range. He had lots of possessions where he switched on to DeMar as well and contained DeMar on the drives. And you know how hard that is. DeMar is so crafty, especially when attacking a switch. You saw opportunities where he was contesting for big rebounds against Andre Drummond, right? You saw him coming in for the blocks. You saw him even at the last possession there where the Raptors were up 4, but you still want to play some defense, right? So I think the Bulls might have had one more timeout as well. And so they're looking for the 3, and they're going to Zach LaVine, who's their best 3-point shooter. And it was Scotty who switched out on Zach LaVine, contested the shot without fouling as well. When you just look at across the board, it's just like, man, he really did a little bit of everything on defense, and he did it all with such like energy where a lot of these plays he would like block the shot, get the rebound, and then push as well. And so I think my question to you, and we just literally heard this and we were watching Nick Nurse's press conference, the replay, you was already there last night, but why can't we get this more often? I think the instinct is always to ask for more, right? If we can get fourth quarter Scotty for the whole game, he'd be an all-star already, right? Yeah. So how do we get him into that moment where he can access more of this level of play earlier in the games?
Yeah, I think as far as this season is concerned, I'm a little bit past asking that question in the sense that you might need to accept it for what it is and have the teammates around him just recognize, okay, well, this is kind of how Scotty just plays the game. And so if you're Fred, if you're OG, obviously Pascal's going to be Pascal and Poeltl's going to do his thing. But I think especially if you're Fred and OG, you should probably recognize that first half. That's an opportunity for you to be really assertive, right? Because Scotty's just kind of getting into the flow, and that has been his nature, right? And so I think I've shifted off, when is it going to be like that for Scotty all 4 quarters? I think that to me now is more of an off-season question in terms of getting him to that level. And so the rest of the way, I really want to see Fred and OG assert themselves early as Scotty is sort of, feeling out the game. And then fourth quarter, this is what we've come to expect.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I think, energy-wise, it probably would be tough to play like that the whole 4 quarters. I don't think he has that kind of endurance, maybe, especially to do that over the course of an 82-game season. But I don't know. There is something where it just feels like a competitiveness kicks in with him. Like sometimes it's like a bad call goes his way, or sometimes somebody roasts him a little bit on offense or something like that. And it just like it gets him going into a different sort of space. And yeah, we've seen it happen a couple of times here. I mean, like, again, you look at the first half for Scotty Barnes, it wasn't like he had a good game at all. First half, last night, he was 1 of 5 from the field, 1 assist, 1 turnover, 1 steal, right? And, we just know how much better he can play. And we obviously saw that in the fourth quarter. Of course, your instinct to ask for more. What did you make of the strategy, though, to not bring back Jakob and to play smaller against the Bulls, who that's kind of counterintuitive, right? They're either playing Vucevic in the middle or they're playing Drummond off the bench. They got a consistent center in there at all times. But the Raptors are actually able to close out strong by going smaller and using that to their advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I think for one, they just needed the shooting out there and that element that Gary brings. And then on top of that, I think on the defensive end, they needed to match what the Bulls bring with their guards.
Okay.
And I think when you look at the Bulls guards last night, Pat Beverly, 7 rebounds. Caruso 4 rebounds. You got, Dosunmu with 6 rebounds. So with Jakob going up against Vucevic, right, the challenge was really how the team rebounding was going to come through.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I think once you got to a stage where you felt like you had managed that, I think it was really about keeping those guards off the glass. And so I think having, just more speed across the court helped. And I think that's what you saw with, especially with Scotty just able to hold his own inside and get those blocks and whatnot. I think that's what played into that.
Yeah. No, it was interesting because I think that, first off, that is something that the Raptors have been playing that style all season, right? So it's not a surprise. I'm sure they're kind of used to it as well. But obviously with Jakob Poeltl in the lineup, it feels like the Raptors have been consistently going to him to close games, and they should be, right? But now they have that option. They can go to Jakob. They can play big. And to be honest, when I was watching this game, I was like looking at my watch or looking at the big clock on the Jumbotron and being like, when are Pascal and Jakob going to come back in? Because, they were playing both doing really well.
Yeah.
But only Pascal came back in. Jakob never did come back in. And I thought that, you know what, for Nick, that's an option that he's going to have going forward, right? He can close small, he can close big. And now the opposing team has to plan for two strategies.
Yeah.
Right? You have the regular, for the first 3 quarters, Jakob Poeltl was tethered to Nikola Vucevic's minutes. Anytime Vucci came in, you also had Jak come in. Also, does people call him Vucci? I just
I mean, that seemed to start in in the room last night. So
yeah, okay, all right. Yeah,
maybe we
Vucci?
keep that one there.
Yeah, all right. Honestly, he didn't play well enough to deserve the Vucci name yesterday. Although he did have 9 of 14, or I think 23 points. But you have these two different looks now, and you can sort of choose the one to go to them. And yeah, I think you're right. Like, they not only were they containing the guards in terms of on the glass, they did a really great job of cutting DeMar off and not getting him a lot of looks driving downhill where he could be so dangerous. We know how clutch DeMar DeRozan is, especially since joining the Chicago Bulls. The Raptors did a really good job containing him, and Nick with a great challenge as well.
That was clutch.
That was a huge play.
Huge performance from OG defensively.
Yeah.
You needed to get that call, right? Where that could have been his 5th, would have been an and one for DeMar, and so you get that switched going the other way, going for you, and you keep OG on the court. And so you look at DeMar, he's limited to 13 points, 5 of 11, and OG talked about how so much of the work with DeMar comes before he catches.
Yeah.
Right? Just literally trying to get him to not catch the ball.
Right.
And so then obviously OG knows enough about his pump fake, is not falling for those. So now DeMar's forced into a situation where he's got to kick it out if OG's on top of it. And so I think that was instrumental in the win. And then again, I look at the glass, like obviously Pascal's going to get you the boards. He gets 8, but OG gets 8. Scotty gets 8. Fred gets you 6. Thad Young 5. Gary Trent Jr. off the bench with 5.
How did that happen, by the way? You rarely see 5 in the box score for Gary.
Yeah, but I think again that's recognizing that, hey, Chicago, the way they play, you've got Jakob Poeltl handling Vucevic. So it's going to come down to everyone else holding down their own, right? And so Fred also talked about pre-Jakob Poeltl, we had to send 2 to the big because it was just really difficult for one player to deal with that.
Yeah.
And now you don't have to do that anymore.
Well,
so
speaking of which, one intrepid reporter did ask Fred about Jakob's presence and how that's changed the team. We got that clip here for you.
It helps. Yeah, it helps. It helps a lot. Again, Yak was a great again tonight. He let a couple of his rebounds, so his rebounds a little low. But other than that, he's just a treat to have, obviously, on both ends of the floor.
Who asked that question?
I don't think I've ever been described as intrepid before.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, how would you like to be described?
No, I'm saying.
Oh, you like it? Okay.
Add it to the resume.
All right. Big Jakob. We're also changing your name. Vivek Jakob from now on. Anyway, but yeah, no, he's been huge, and I think that
But what's funny about this clip is like all these guys. The second you ask them a question about Jakob, it's just like this complete expression of relief,
right? Because Fred's laughing at the clip, right? You can hear it, yeah.
And he's just like, man, you could see him like just thinking back and being like, man, we had to work so hard.
Yeah.
And now,
well, they have these options now, right? And again, like the Bulls yesterday, they had a lot of 7-footers out there, and they were able to play them twice in 2 ways. And look, listen, I do think that there probably is a portion of it where it's like if Scotty played center last night, like the way the Raptors had played for a large part of the winter here in December and January with Scotty at center, and he had to battle Vucevic and then battle Drummond for the first 3 quarters, I don't think he has the energy and the legs to play and fly around the way he did in the fourth quarter as well.
Not.
So, yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, what have you made overall of sort of Jakob and sort of the stability and the clarification of the roles that the Raptors have been able to play with him back in the lineup now?
I think number one, it finally settles what that starting 5 question is.
Right. Because we got it answered yesterday. Gary was going to the bench.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt that those 5 players are the best 5. And so you look at Fred, OG, Scotty, Pascal, Jakob. In terms of talent, in terms of ability, experience, no one is supplanting those 5.
Yeah.
Right. And so for Gary, it's very clear what his role is the rest of the season. Precious, it's very clear what his role is the rest of the season. By the way, I'll throw Precious into that mix too. I know Nick calls it 6 starters, but I could definitely see the possibility where Precious is having one of those big nights. He is part of that closing 5.
Okay.
Right. And so I think that's another intriguing option. So it stabilizes the bench rotation and you know, it also makes it easier for Nick in terms of which of the starters he's keeping out there at all times, right?
Yeah.
2 of who. And so I think the bench is stabilized, the starters are clear, and so everyone knows what they're coming in to do.
Yeah.
Right? Like Precious, Chris, the rest of the season, they know they're coming in to be that tag team duo and impact the game the way we know they usually can. Wasn't quite to the same effect, but Chris Boucher came through late.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like those threes he hit were massive. It was late 3rd, early 4th.
Yeah.
Those are important threes that he hit. So shouts to him for that. And then, you know, then you have those wild cards that come in on a given night and give you something that is important. Thad Young yesterday, it could be Will Barton down the line. You know, you throw in a Jeff Doughton who's played well. So those are the X factors that might come into play on a given night. But now I think just the stability of the rotation, the clarity that, hey, Jakob Poeltl is your starting center, and obviously, you know, the next 4, everything trickles down from there.
Yeah, I think my thing is just everyone looks really solid in their roles, right? Like, I think that
because everyone knows what their role is.
Yeah, you have a exactly, right? But you have that dependability with each guy now, and yeah, no, I think it was a question. I don't know if Nick was dodging it. By the way, pregame, because so also decision I made pregame. Typically at 5:45, I would join you in the interview room, and Nick Nurse would come speak before the game. However, I saw Will Barton was out there, and I'm like, it's time for the Will. You know, I gotta look at the pregame shooting. I gotta look at the warm up report.
Priorities.
So I was like, no, I'm sorry, Nick, but I'm gonna watch Will Barton, an 11-year veteran, go through his warm ups. Okay, so you know, I chose to do that. So I wasn't there pregame. When I'm sure you guys asked Nick about what his starting 5 was going to be. Did he give an answer, or did he play coy again?
No. He played coy.
Again, man. Why does he do this? You know who you're going to start with. Did he say, like, oh, I'm still deciding last minute already?
No, literally, he said, I got to check one more thing.
What do you mean, man? No, Nick. This guy coming up with excuses is incredible. And he just never tells you a starting lineup.
This is Nicky Nurse, baby.
Oh, it's literally Nicky Nurse, baby. It's one of his signature go-tos, man.
And
it's like
funny
Pascal with the
one of the
move.
reporters retorted with, "Are you checking for a pregnancy?" Like,
oh man, that's a good line. Oh man,
so
it's
yeah,
good. Yeah.
Nick's gonna keep it quiet, but you know, I think he's excited by what Will Barton could potentially bring to this team.
Speaking of which, Herbie, by the way, up to 4 languages spoken last night.
Oh man,
oh, he was going
Herbie is on fire.
Oh yeah, this guy's teaching me how to say 19 in German.
Shouts to Jakob on Open Gym being like, oh yeah, I know he's really into it.
Yeah, that was first of all, the last Open Gym episode, if you haven't seen it already, elite vibes. Is longer than usual, 30 minutes. But it had Yacht coming back to Toronto, which was good. It had Pascal and Scotty at All-Star, which was great. Pascal and DeMar at All-Star, which was great.
That was
awesome. You had DeMar producing the show on air. Well, excellent stuff. Okay, a little shades of Alex Wong there. But yeah, no, he also had a very underrated clip where you know, head of PR Jennifer Quinn was talking to Jakob about sort of how he wants his name pronounced. And then Jakob was like, oh, Herbie, right. I know he gets really into it.
Yeah.
So, no, man, salute to Herbie, man. Listen, it's important to pronounce people's names right, man. Just because you come in the studio and I call you Big Jakob, like that shouldn't be the case, you know?
Hey, listen, establishing a brand, that's a big thing.
Oh, he's got a
Shouts
brand
to
for
Herbie.
sure, man. No, that's a day one legend right there.
Yeah.
Well, but speaking of the new rotations, okay, so what did you make of Gary's role off the bench?
Yeah, I think a little bit of it is him still getting in rhythm, but
okay.
I do think that he comes in and he understands his role, and I think there were a couple opportunities. Like I was looking at that second quarter rotation where they had Scotty at the point, Gary, OG, Thad, and Jakob, and so I think that's where maybe there were a bit more opportunities offensively.
Yeah.
Even for him. And I think there were actually a couple of times where Gary did a good job driving and kicking.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I think that's where, I don't know if people were surprised that the ball got to them. But I think there was a catch and shoot opportunity a couple of times that wasn't taken. And so I think those are things that should come with familiarity and just having those rotations play consistently, which is obviously a thing that you're just hoping for. You don't expect because the health with this team has just been what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they can just nail down stable rotations and everyone knows when they're coming in and when they're coming out, I think that'll go a long way in, greasing the wheels for those secondary units offensively.
Yeah, I don't think, by the way, I mean, obviously, like, I'm a big proponent of, like, just do your job, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about it. That if I were ever a boss of anybody, that would be my response.
Right.
It wouldn't be a good boss. But I think it shouldn't go without being recognized that this is a contract year for Gary, and he's willingly gone to the bench for the second time now.
Yeah.
First time went to the bench, was super professional about it. Stayed really focused, gave really great answers, very insightful, played his role hard, produced. Same thing last night as well. The 5 threes was awesome. I think there are small concessions you got to give him. Like, I thought it was interesting at the end of the first quarter, Fred had the ball with the shot clock turned off, and he was just like, Gary, here you go. 20 seconds, just create, right? Do whatever you want in this scenario, right? And all Gary got was a pull-up 3 contested against Andre Drummond, and it missed. And the only good thing was that it killed all of the clock, so there was no chance to counter. Sorry, I'm football brain. I'm worried about the counters, man. It's like a good corner, okay? As long as you don't concede to Salah on the counter, you're good.
Yeah,
you know all about that. But sorry, I can only slander from years past anymore.
This is what we do.
Yeah, I know. Congrats on the Carabao Cup, by the way. Maybe it was just
Alex just took off his headphones
on air. Yeah, as if he's listening. No, I'm kidding. He's producing at home for sure. All right, but no, but seriously though, like you got to give them some of these reps where it's just like, okay, you got to create something out of this, right?
Yeah.
And generate some of the offenses. And listen, the more aggressive that he is, the more defense is going to converge on him. Then you'll have those chances to pass, right? And of course, you would ideally like for him to be Manu Ginobili off the bench and do all that other stuff. But we know that's not what Gary is.
No.
He's been asked to be a finisher, but now he's asked to be a finisher and a creator. And I thought he did his role really well. I mean, even last night when you're having him on the floor to close out the game, yes, it was in part for his offense, and he made 2 clutch free throws and a clutch 3 for you last night in the fourth quarter. But I thought it was also important that, like, look, if you're on the floor, Nick has to trust you defensively. And Gary came up with 2 steals in the fourth quarter, both I think against Zach LaVine on drives, and it's like that's not an easy job guarding Zach LaVine in the fourth, but you entrusted him to do that, and yeah, I thought he played his role well. The next step for me is how do we get Precious, who was playing really well in January, to get back to being productive, but in a bench role, because the last 4 games since he has been relegated to the second unit, Precious Achiuwa is averaging 6.8 points, 4.5 rebounds on 38% shooting from the field. He was doing really well for a stretch there as a starter, and then Jakob came in and then sort of pushed him off that role of being the center there. What do you think is going on with Precious? Because I haven't really been impressed by him on either end since going back to the bench.
Yeah, I think with him, I'd probably give a similar answer to Scotty, where I'd say, hey, don't worry about the offense. If you have that defensive intensity and energy, the rest will come.
Okay.
And that's where I feel like he's been a bit slow, a step slow defensively.
Sure.
And especially, contesting at the rim, I don't think he's recognized the danger. And like just basic, like, stop the ball. As opposed to, and that's the thing. I wouldn't even call it like a selfish where he's like too worried about his own man. I just don't think he's made the right choice in terms of just like getting over and helping and then trusting that your teammate will cover for you. So I think just little things like that will make a difference protecting the rim inside. And yeah, I think we've seen plays where, If he gets the opportunity to attack a closeout off a kickout, then he can be successful. And I think opportunities offensively where he is looking to actually create, and it's not off, someone's primary action, then he struggles. And so I think those are situations where he can just look to reset the offense, look for that, quick pass back and then get into position. I think those are the little things that he can change, but I do trust that he'll come back to form. I do think that, it's been an up and down season for him. On the whole, it's probably been a down year when you look at expectations after the way he finished off last season.
Yep.
But I do think defensively, his potential, he has consistently met that potential.
Right.
And so to me, this is just a little slump and he should get back to it.
Yeah, no, I think that is the hope. And the reason I'm disappointed is because he had set the bar pretty high, right? There was a stretch there, obviously he was coming back from injury and he was only playing like 10 minutes a game or like 5 minutes a game. When he started playing consistently over 10 minutes and he got back into his conditioning, he had a stretch there for 19 games where he averaged 13 points per game, 8 rebounds, assists, a block, a steal, shooting 56% from the field and 34% from three. And I had gotten really used to that. I was like, the pressures looked really promising, right? He had a lot of great contributions. A lot of that was him playing center, obviously, with the starting group, where there's so many creators available for him. But at the same time, he was just playing really well, right? And so I'm looking for that same play, but off the bench. And I think that there is an adjustment period there too, because similar to what we just said about Gary in terms of like, okay, he's gone to the bench for a second time now, has to continue to be productive. Precious, ever since becoming a Raptor, has been shuttled in and out of the starting lineup. Oh, someone's hurt? Precious, you start. Oh, you don't have a center out there? Precious, you play center, even though you're 6'8". You're the same height as some of these other guys. You're the same height as OG and Pascal, but go out there, and Scotty, but you're playing center and like shifting them around and coming in and out of the group. And obviously he had an injury for the first time in his career, and that took an adjustment to get back from. But I know there's a really good amount of production in Precious, and I think that he showed it recently, and I just want to see it continue, because you get that off your bench now. You got Chris Boucher, who, look, the offense is kind of random, but it always feels amazing.
Yeah.
Every time Chris hits a three, it feels like you won the lottery. Like you did a little keynote.
100%, man.
You're like, oh, $10. Wow, nice. Obviously he's going to come up with some hustle plays in terms of like the blocks or like the dunks in transition. And now you add Will to that group too, and it's like and you have Gary as a scorer off the bench now. You have a really balanced lineup. Like Nick was able to go 10 deep yesterday. He was even able to play Thad Young. We're gonna go to break, but I'm gonna reserve the last 2 minutes here for Thad Young. What did you make of Nick breaking him out yesterday and using him even though he had a full rotation? We've seen Thad not play in a lot of these games, but I thought he played decently. Outside of that third quarter heap, which everyone in the booth was bewildered.
Yeah, the third quarter, you just don't. That's the thing. He's so smart that you just don't expect it.
Exactly. You never see any boneheaded plays from Thad ever.
Yeah,
and we saw one yesterday. But
he's one of the highest IQ guys on the team. He's one of the most experienced guys. I mean, he is the most experienced guy on the team.
Yeah,
and
he's one of the most experienced guys in the league. Man.
Yeah,
there might be like 5-6 guys in the league that have more experience.
Exactly. So that was just a surprise. And then obviously he had the turnover early in the fourth, which. Yeah, he could show better awareness, but I also thought, that's something that your teammates have to be calling out when someone's sneaking up from behind like that. And so, I feel like there's equal blame to be placed there. But
sure.
Outside of that, I think Thad brought what Thad usually brings, and maybe what was different was that he got to play the 4 as opposed to usually coming in to play the 5. And again, this is a benefit of Jakob Poeltl, and so. I think he is someone who also keeps the offense in flow, right? Like he recognizes those situations where you need a quick reset, and that initial action is denied, and you can get into that secondary action and second side and third side. And I think that's where he really comes in and is a beneficiary to the offense.
Right.
I think. Again, when he gets the ball in the post, he knows when he has an advantage. Like you see those post ups where he's able to, get a shot off right underneath the basket, and so guys also understand how to cut off of him. And I think that's, that exactly what you are going to get when he steps on the court.
Yeah,
and there's real value in that off the bench when a matchup presents itself.
Yeah, I love the Raptors playing on the post. If it's Jakob in the high post, I like it. If it's Scotty in the high post, I like it. If it's Pascal in the post, I love it. That's our best play. if Thad Young in the post, I like. Even they gave OG the ball in the post yesterday. I liked it. I do think that that's another area where the Raptors can, focus their offense and direct it more often. I mean, look, listen, you're not always going to dump into the post and play from there. Like, that's just not how modern basketball is played these days. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's no, it's good. Yesterday it looked cohesive, even though the first 3 quarters I was tearing my hair out, but the fourth quarter was lit. So we're gonna forget all about that. But we're gonna, take a break right here. But when we come back, we will talk about the newest Raptor, Will Barton, made his debut yesterday, and yeah, just look a little bit into his game. But for now, I've been your host, Walu, and you've been listening to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. weight. I've played with DeMar. I know he's not a good defender. Like, welcome back to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Win Lu. Continue to be joined by Vivek Jacob. Only 9 minutes left until kickoff.
Yep.
United, who you guys playing?
West Ham.
West Ham. Wow. Excited, man. You excited? You excited to see Declan Rice pass laterally?
The march to another trophy begins.
Oh, wow. This guy already talking about another trophy, man. Nah, congratulations, man.
You see what happened with Ten Hag?
The little dance?
No, the press conference after he took the trophy.
Yeah.
But at the end of the press conference, he forgot the trophy and started walking out. And then they reminded him, and then he came back to get it. But he's like, you know what? Doesn't matter because now we got to get the next one.
Okay. See, this reminds me of when Masai was at the podium, and he had the Larry O'Brien trophy on the table, and he was talking about how the Raptors were going to be Liverpool or United, man. They're neither. To be clear, they're neither.
Yeah. Right now, they're Leicester City.
I was just going to ask you oh, man. That's not nice, man. That's not nice, man.
They got the one.
Damn. So who's Vardy then? Pascal?
I guess so.
Oh, God. Oh, God. So Kante was Kawhi?
Oh, man.
Oh, man. That's tough, man. Who was Mahrez? Anyway, we don't need a whole comp for Leicester City and Liverpool. No one wants to hear that comparison. We're here to talk about Will Barton, the latest Raptor who has signed with the Toronto Raptors. Look, I was not expecting anyone to sign on the biomarker. Were you? For the Raptors?
No. And especially, when you look at the role that Jeff Doughton seemed to be carving out for himself, I just figured this was it. And it was like the conversation was more so, can Doughton keep this up to the point where maybe you do have him on your playoff roster, right? Because obviously two ways aren't eligible.
Yep.
So that was more of the conversation. And so this kind of came out of nowhere. But I think he is obviously a piece that can help. I think that, for his career, he's 37% shooter. So I think that's going to be a big help. I think his ball handling when he comes in and gets those reps is going to be important. And, I think you see, even though he's been around for 11 years, he's got some pop off the bounce, right? And
yeah. He's still got some juice.
They called him Will the Throw for a reason. And so I think he's going to be a useful addition. And, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, clearly, he was in Denver for a very, very long time.
Yes.
And then he was traded to Washington this past offseason. And it wasn't a fit for him in Washington, right? And it was like, okay, so then he got bought out.
That's why I wouldn't read too much into his numbers in Washington.
Sure,
But
yeah.
Continue, yeah.
No, but then I was like, oh, yeah, I guess he didn't do well in Washington. Then I looked with the numbers, and I'm like, you tell me he shot 38% from three in Washington, and he scored 7.7 points per game off the bench? That's a good Raptors bench player. Like a bad Wizards bench player is a good Raptors bench player in my book. So, look, I think there is definitely a track record. I think, with everybody who comes over from Denver, you're like, okay, how much of that was just a beneficiary of playing with Nikola Jokic? One of is your favorite Joker or is your second favorite Joker? He's your second favorite Joker.
Second favorite.
Yeah, I know because you multi sports. You every sport to be honest. No, but seriously though, like there is that aspect, and of course you always wonder about that. But at the same time, like I just think that he's clearly a very experienced player. He has a diversified skill set. He can get his own basket, but he can also catch and shoot for you a little bit from three. But he knows what to do, really. And I was surprised because I just didn't think that Toronto was like it's just not a place really where people come for buyouts that often. We've seen it more recently with Jeremy Lin and in 2019, and we also saw it with Jason Thompson a couple years before that. But I think that probably gets you to be a little bit cautious of like, okay, buyouts aren't necessarily such a sexy thing. But at the same time, I do think there is a potential fit here. And it was interesting to hear from Will Barton in terms of why he signed with the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah, with some other teams I was considering. I had a good relationship with Earl Watson. He was my veteran. I was a rookie in Portland, so I had a very good relationship with him. I talked to Nick Nurse briefly, and I just felt like it was a good opportunity. This is a good team. I feel like I come in and bring some leadership, some versatility, some bench playmaking and scoring, and just a lot of energy.
So shouts to Earl Watson. You remember Earl Watson on the Blazers?
I do not.
Yeah. But
I remember how excited we got about Jason Thompson knocking down wide open corner threes in practice and thinking that might be something.
yeah, that was during a time where the Raptors had a dearth of like the power forwards. So I suppose this is at a time where the Raptors had a dearth of bench guards.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's interesting because I think that, for a guy like Will, like, you would consider some other like guaranteed playoff teams. Let's just say that. Like, let's be nice to the Raptors. They're not that right now. Come calling, but he chose to stay, come here, and I guess, man, Earl Watson must be a really good people person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is like 10 years ago we're talking about this.
No, I mean, I think that seems to be the consensus with Watson that, he is a relationship builder and he is someone that connects with the players. And so I do think, this is very much a who you know business.
Yeah.
And so when you establish those relationships, there can come a time where it can be beneficial. And this seems to be the case here. I mean, Will Barton got here pretty quick. And then got in the game pretty quick too.
Well, they asked him about, you were there, but the scrums were like, you got here pretty quick. And he's like, yeah, as soon as I got the call from the agent, I got on the flight. I'm like, were you just waiting at the airport with a jet ready to go? Like, there's no way. But anyway, I'm happy that he's here. By the way, Earl Watson played 24 games with the Portland Trail Blazers in one season in 2013-14. So it's not, I mean, I didn't remember that he was a Blazer either. But in that 24 games that he got into, like, or that one season he spent with Will, I mean, he clearly left that impression. So that's nice. I think there's always that question in terms of, like, if he signs here, if it's not necessarily to chase a championship, it's probably to at least reestablish his value as a player, because he is obviously heading into a contract year, as every buyout player is. And this is what Will Barton had to say about in terms of what he's looking for in terms of playing time.
Definitely, some playing time to, keep proving myself, but also just to impact winning. I know we're trying to make a push to get into the playoffs, so it's just, trying to find a balance and a mixture for both.
Yeah. Do you see that spot for playing time with him on the roster?
I think so, just because he feels a need, right? And I think we know the three-point shooting is weak on this team. We know that currently the three main shooters are Fred, OG, and Gary.
Yep. And if anybody gets hurt, we just have two shooters in that game. Yeah.
And so to stabilize that a bit, obviously that's what Otto Porter Jr. was initially signed for.
Right.
But now if you have Will Barton to sustain that a little bit, and again, you look at balancing the roster a bit better. Juancho Hernan Gomez at this point of the season was obviously excess. He wasn't going to get in games. And so you now have this option, which Nick Nurse seems excited to use.
Yeah.
And so I do think he will get his share of opportunities, especially coming up against, a Washington and Denver team that he has some familiarity with.
Yeah. No, they're playing Washington and Denver, his two previous teams, in addition to Portland. But they're playing Washington and Denver 5 times in the next, month.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting for him. I'm sure you'll hear a great round of applause when we go to Denver as well, because he was a fan favorite there. But yeah, no, I think, look, on paper, it's like, okay, yes, the rotation's going to have to extend pretty deep here. Like yesterday, we saw 10 guys in the rotation, right? And Will got in there, and he only got 4 minutes last night. If he's playing more minutes, obviously he's eating minutes off of some of the other guards on the team, Gary, who's already being sent to the bench, so you don't want to take up too much of his minutes. And, of course, like Fred and even OG and Scotty to some degree. But at the same time, as we know, the Raptors aren't going to stay healthy consistently. Like, you know what I mean? It's just the reality of the league right now. Like, people are going to come in and out the group. And I think that the nice thing for me is, like, when the Raptors have the injuries and they go from having 3 shooters to 2 shooters, and we go from making, double-digit threes to, single-digit threes, and it's almost impossible to win the league nowadays. You have players who hit double-digit threes every week.
Yeah.
Right? By themselves. So if you as a team can't even hit double-digit threes, I do feel like you just need more depth of shooters.
Exactly.
So the opportunity is going to present itself when guys come in and out of the group. But no, I'm happy for Will. He got his first practice in today. I think for him joining the Raptors too, I think he also feels like there's something to chase for here. It's not just obviously, okay, look, the Raptors aren't guaranteed a playoff spot. They're not even guaranteed a play-in spot just now. But at the same time, there is still according to Will, a respect for the Raptors across the league in terms of the Raptors being better than the record?
Oh yeah, Juancho's great. We all love Juancho.
No, that's
Juancho's
not
a great guy.
Oh, for sure. They have so much talent. You know, that starting five, and then you add Jakob Poeltl, and now bringing Gary off the bench. You know, it's just a lot of firepower. So I just wanted to add any depth I could to this team. Definitely a team that is way better than their record. Everyone knows that around the league. Very talented, well coached, well-run organization. So hopefully we can just keep getting wins and have our record better and get to the playoffs.
Yeah. Who asked that question, B?
I did.
I love how I'm just playing your answers to your questions
it.
on the show later on into that day. So
it was all part of the plan.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, I think this speaks to the reputation that the Raptors have now as an organization, the respect that they have for their playing style as a group that plays extremely hard.
Yep.
And also, you know, for Nick Nurse. And he talked about wanting to grow that relationship with Nick and what he came to expect playing against Nick.
Mm-hmm.
And so looking forward to being a part of that and trying to do that against other teams. So, yeah, I think he looks at this team and says, you know, as a vet, once you make the playoffs, it's, you know, ball goes up, you're competing.
Yeah.
And so he sees an opportunity with this team. He thinks the starting five is great. And especially now moving Gary to the bench and those options that you have off the bench with Chris and Precious and now him, he obviously has a level of belief that he can contribute to a winning team. And if you're Will Barton, as an 11-year vet, that's what you're trying to showcase to teams come the summer, right? That you can contribute to a winning team.
Yeah. And he's been part of winning teams. I mean, like, obviously he was in Denver for a long time, but, you know, Denver's been very successful, and he's been a strong rotation player for them. He started, come off the bench, stuff like that. Yeah, I think for me, I'm just looking at the lineup on paper, and I'm like, you have Gary and Will as your playmakers off the bench, two guys who can get their own shot, but also can catch and shoot a little bit. You know, you have your two hustle bigs. You have Thad if you want to put him in there in the right matchup as like a playmaking four.
Yep.
Like all of a sudden that bench group feels much more substantive. Like if you look down the bench, you could like, okay, somebody can come give me something different, or they can replace something that the starters were doing, right? So
to that point, just quickly, I think one of the biggest weaknesses before was that you had no choice to ask certain guys to like step out of their box and give you just what was required in that game.
Yeah.
And so when they didn't do that, it was like, hey, the bench has failed.
Mm-hmm.
But now I think you have a bit more of, you know, variety off the bench. And so automatically now when a game is demanding certain things, you actually have a piece that fits what's being asked.
Right.
And so I think that's the big thing that will be helped now with the bench.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. We have guys who have actually done it. Although I gotta say, I feel a little sick for Jeff Dowden. Feel a little sick. He got assigned to the 905, by the way, again.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough for sure.
I guess this is what the league is. It really is. Like you might think you might have a little bit of something, but you really don't. Like no, and there's no guarantees.
Yeah. No, I mean,
especially as a two-way, obviously, but like, you know.
Man. Yeah, the reality of the league is tough, but I think all you can do is control what you can control. And I don't think there's any question that Jeff Dowden, when he got the opportunity, made the most of it.
Got you. Yeah.
And hopefully, you know, teams look at that, everyone looks at that and respects what he brought to the table. And, you know, he can carve out a role for himself in the NBA.
Yeah. Same for Juancho. You know? Good dude. Really good dude. I'm sure you had lots of conversations with Juancho or talking to him in the locker room or whatever. Like everything I heard about Juancho, really good dude. I mean, when they went to that one of their, you know, team events was to visit a sick kids hospital. And apparently Juancho was just like so good with all the kids, and apparently he's like a big kid at heart. So obviously like the production on the court, obviously that's ultimately what we were looking for. You know, that wasn't necessarily there, although he did start a fair number of games. But yeah, no, he's just a good dude. So I'm just wishing him the best of luck, man. That's all.
Yeah. And super sincere.
Yeah.
Like anytime I had a conversation with him, first thing was like, "Hey, how are you?" And like, he's like actually like, it's a concerted.
By the way,
effort.
the bar is
You know
on
what I
the
mean? Like-
floor for professional athletes. I know that sounds like a regular, like, whatever,
Yeah.
but the bar is on the floor for
But
athletes.
I mean, I think a lot of times with these athletes, when we come to have conversations with them, it's almost like they assume the role of just like, hey, this is transactional. Like you're just
Yep.
here to like get your quotes and we'll
Sometimes
move
it
on.
is.
And it is what it is. But to, sense that sincerity from him, it was always there. He was always a very genuine person.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what came off when the Raptors had these community events. And so I think when he's interacting with the kids at Sick Kids Hospital, when they've had other events, that's just naturally a part of who he is, right? There's no faking it with any of this. And so I think that just speaks to how he was raised and the type of teammate he is as well, right? Like if he's on the bench, you never heard anything about complaints or frustration or anything like that. When he was on the floor, he played super unselfish basketball. And
Arguably too unselfish sometimes. He wouldn't take some of those threes, which the Raptors definitely needed.
Yeah.
But no, it's in keeping with his character, man.
Yeah. So, yeah, shouts to him, and hopefully he can get another opportunity.
Yeah. Which, by the way, so the Raptors had one reporter here who is consistently going to games who covers for a Spanish outlet and for a Spanish-based audience. And so, he would always keep tabs on Juancho and ask Nick about Juancho. And I was talking to him, and he was like, well, at least Juancho has like a day here where he can sign to potentially still be eligible for EuroLeague. So maybe the timing did sort of coincide well with that.
Right.
But who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, and I think it is important to do right by the players.
No,
in
of course.
regard,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like if that is a window that's possible for him, then I think it's good that you've timed it the way that you
Yeah.
have.
No, we had played that clip accidentally earlier, but there is a clip that we have where OG describes what it was like playing with Juancho.
Oh yeah, Juancho's great. We all love Juancho. Juancho's a great guy. He's super funny, super cool. Just a great guy.
So
Hey, listen,
we've run out of time to talk about the Pascal Scotty Yak front court, man. We just did 5 minutes on what a good dude Juancho was,
But
but
hey,
he
man.
was a good guy. He really was.
look, if you can get more than 3 words out of OG, then you did something right. So
Yeah.
Juancho, respect.
Good for you, man.
OG had a lot of good things to say about you.
Yeah. A promising career as an actor. How much more Juancho gear stuff do we have? Your favorite Juancho moment from this season?
From this season,
Yeah, we have 1 minute until we have to close the show, so I'm buying this time.
I don't know if it's specifically a moment, but when Juancho started with that,
Yeah.
the chemistry that they had,
Right.
I thought that was some really fun basketball. And I think, again, you talk about team basketball and like the way they played off of each other was fun to watch for that
Yeah.
brief stretch.
Well,
And-
they were teammates with the Spurs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think, I believe that was the stretch when Pascal was out. And so
Yeah, right.
I think, that is probably my best memory of Juancho.
Got you. Well, we've bought enough time, V.
Yeah.
Yeah, how's the game going for you? Are you watching it on your screen?
Yep. No.
All
6 minutes in.
I knew it, man. You're a sicko like me because I'm about to watch Liverpool play Wolves for like the 10th time
Yep.
in the last couple months here. So, no, that does it for us on the show today. I've been your host, Willu, and you've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure you find The Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe and please rate and review the show. A reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360, Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Big thanks once again to Vivek Jakob. All right, sorry, we got to change your name with
We're changing it up. All right.
all right, with Pirtle here.
We'll
Our
roll
board
with it.
producer, Derek Brandale, busy at work training the next generation, and Jennifer Olnick for helping us with the YouTube stream. We'll be back tomorrow.